Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to Engineering for Change, or as we like to say, E4C for short. Today we're very pleased to bring you the latest in E4C's 2013 webinar series. This webinar was developed in collaboration with the World Toilet Organization and our guest presenter, who is Jack Sim. My name is John Kluge, and I will be moderating today's webinar. And when I'm not doing this, I work with Toilet Hackers, where I'm the co-founder and chief disruption officer. I'd like to take a moment now and tell you a bit about today's webinar, which is about World Toilet Day and the experience of the World Toilet Organization, WTO, the other WTO, in achieving global branding at zero cost. At E4C, we're constantly on the lookout for organizations that are tackling wicked challenges in sanitation using disruptive approaches. So we're especially excited to have my friend, colleague, and the founder of the WTO, Jack Sim, join us today to share some of his insights. And Jack, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started...
I'm happy.
So are we. We are really excited. And before we get started, I'd like to take a moment just to recognize the coordinators of the E4C webinar series generally. So Yana Aranda of ASME, Holly Schneider-Brown, Victoria Chung, Alex Torres of the IEEE, who work on developing and delivering this series. Thank you, team. You're all great. And if anyone has any questions about the series or would like to make a recommendation for a future presenter, please contact the webinar's team via the email address, which is on the slide here, webinars@engineeringforchange.org. Before I hand things over to Jack for today, I thought that it would be a great idea to remind you about Engineering for Change and who we are. E4C is a global community, now over 14,000 technically minded individuals, made up by engineers, technologists, representatives from NGOs, and social scientists who work together to solve critical humanitarian challenges, whether that be in sanitation, energy, health, agriculture, water, or other areas faced around the world today. And we invite you to join the E4C by becoming a member. So E4C membership provides cost-free access to a growing inventory of field-tested solutions and related information from all the members of our coalition, including professional societies like EWB USA, the IEEE, ASCE, SWE, and ASHRAE, academic supporters like MIT's D-Lab, ASU's Global Resolve Program, Santa Clara Center for Science, Technology, and Society, and of course international development agencies like USAID and Practical Action, as well as access to passionate, engaged community working to make people's lives better all over the world. So registration is easy. You won't be required to remember any three-letter or four-letter monikers, and it's free. Check out our website, engineeringforchange.org, to learn more and sign up. The webinar you're participating in today is one installment of the Engineering for Change series. This free, publicly available series of online seminars showcases the best practices and thinking of leaders in the field who bring leading-edge ideas and technology-based solutions to bear on global humanitarian and development challenges. Information on upcoming installments in the series, as well as archived videos of past presentations, can be found on the EWC Webinars webpage, engineeringforchangewebinars.org. And if you're on Twitter, you can also join the conversation with hashtag EWC Webinars. The next webinar will be a dual language version in Spanish on August 27th and in English on August 29th, both at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, on the subject of rural development consulting, social entrepreneurship, and sustainable development. The presenters will be Daniel Ignacio Garcia, founder of Emergent Engineers, and Bryce Gabery, co-founder and director of Advancing Engineering. To register, just check out the E4C webinars page. So, some quick housekeeping items before we get going. Let's see where everyone is from today. In the chat window, please type in your location. Any technical questions or administrative problems should go in the chat window. Feel free to send a private chat to Victoria or Yana. You can also use the chat window to type any remarks you might have. And during the webinar, please use the Q&A window located below the chat window to type in your questions for Jack. If you're listening to the audio broadcast and you encounter any problems, just try hitting stop and then restarting. If that doesn't work, you can always try the call-in number for the teleconference. And you may want to try opening WebEx in a different browser. Following the webinar, to request a certificate of completion showing 1 professional development hour for this session, please provide your full name and date. You completed the webinar as well as the code that we'll give you at the end of the session. And send that to eab-ceuadmin@ieee.org. All right. So this is pretty cool. We have people from all over the world coming in. Looks like I even have a fellow Virginian. So welcome everyone, and let's go ahead and get started. So just a quick thing about myself. As I mentioned, I work in sanitation as well, and Jack and I are actually partners in the field. And Toilet Hackers is a US-based nonprofit that really operates in 3 areas. We work on innovation, so running hackathons to help generate new technologies, new designs, new kinds of marketing for sanitation and hygiene, and to help build a community of people working in the sector. 2, we work on advocacy, so as you'll hear from Jack, if we can't talk about shit, we're not going to be able to fix it or treat the problem. So we really work on getting people to talk around the issue, whether that be policymakers, investors, or the sort of global public. And lastly is all about field work. So that's about helping people from their communities, working with those communities, and also testing new models for social change, whether that be business examples or market-based solutions. So let's just turn it over to Jack, but first, I guess, Jack, I'll read your bio. You are widely known as Mr. Toilet. You are certainly one of the greatest champions out there for sanitation. You've clearly broken through the taboo of toilets and brought this to the global agenda through humor and serious facts. So, Jack, I know that you've been a very successful entrepreneur, and like my own father, actually, sort of came out of poverty and into success. And now that you're devoting your life to social work, it's really inspiring and incredible to see what you're doing with the World Toilet Organization and have done since then. You've been able to reach around 3.5 billion people worldwide since you began and exposing them to the issue of sanitation and hygiene. So thank you so much for being a flag bearer for this field and for being such a partner. I'm going to flip to a video that will help everyone understand a little bit about Jack and the issue, and then we'll return back to the slideshow.
When we are children, our parents tell us not to talk about shit. This is a really serious problem. What you don't talk about, you cannot improve. A lot of people call me Mr. Toilet. I'm really proud of it.
All right. So Jack, as everyone can see, he's pretty amazing. And he has a sensibility about him that is truly unique in the world. And we're very lucky to have him with us today. Jack, I'm going to turn this over to you now. Again, just a reminder to all the participants, if you have questions during Jack's presentation, please type them into the Q&A box, and I'll be sure to review them and follow up at the end of Jack's talk. So Jack, I'm turning it over to you. Thanks again, and looking forward to a terrific presentation.
All right. Thanks, John. And welcome, and thanks everybody for participating in this session. Tonight we're going to talk about how this World Toilet Day has been created, because long ago, around the year 2000, we discovered that people don't want to talk about toilets. It's very embarrassing, and so the problems accumulated over a long time. And in the last 13 years, we have been celebrating World Toilet Day, and what a difference it has made so far. So if I were to if I were to ask you how many times you eat a day, you would know, because we're very cognizant about food, about drinks. We talk about a good bottle of wine for 15 minutes, but we would never talk about going to the toilet. So if I ask you how many times do you go to the toilet a day, then mostly for most of you, this will be the first time in your life you are counting how many times you go to the toilet. It is because when we were young, the society, our parents tell us, this is very embarrassing. Don't talk about shit. Your uncle is visiting. Don't be rude. We are eating, So when you don't talk about something, then things start to become unresolved. What happens is, shit is also not a charismatic species. It's not like a penguin or a panda that you can really love and identify with. On top of that, when they talk about sanitation, they put it together with water. So for the longest time, they have been calling it Watson, water and sanitation. So when I first started to come into this sector, I talked to Watson engineers in UN Habitat, in UNDP, and when I asked them about sanitation question, they would always answer me in water. And it's kind of like a chicken and duck conversation. You ask them about sanitation and they tell you about water. And then I asked them, why is it that you are not talking about sanitation? I realized that most of the engineers have not been educated about on-site sanitation. They have only been trained on sewerage pipe systems that are in the city. So engineers do not understand ecological sanitation and very, very simple on-site treatment. On top of that, the water is so glamorous that when you compete water with sanitation, it's a very unfair competition. It's like comparing Miss Universe with your grandmother. So Miss Universe gets all the attention and all the funding, and the grandmother is neglected. So this created, again, the taboo that cannot be broken. And over the years, open defecation continues, and this is a picture I shot in Bangalore that is supposed to be the Silicon Valley of India, and this is still going on. This is another shot of a young girl that has diarrhea, and she took off her panty because it was wet. This is an open defecation photograph which I took in the morning. All the men and the women wake up early in the morning before sunrise to go to the toilet on the roadside. And then they would go to the field
or go home, and then at night when it's dark again, they would do it a second time. The flies then goes to the poop and then spread the disease everywhere. That's why a lot of children die of diarrhea. Now you have another photograph that I took in Kenya, in the Kibera slums, and here you have a lot of plastic bags on the ground, and all the shit are tied into plastic bag and thrown. We call this the flying toilets, because what they do is they use a Coke bottle, those PET bottle, cut them into half, and then put a plastic bag inside, and then put it behind them and poop into it. Then they tie the plastic bag and they throw it. So this whole street is full of plastic bag. I'm sitting inside the taxi over the left side, and the children at the distance, they are playing barefooted, and some are sitting on the floor, touching the floor with their hands, and then rubbing their eyes or putting their fingers into their mouth. So this is how they die or get sick, because the disease spreads so easily among the children. And all the shit eventually goes into the river because the rain comes, and the river used to be able to provide them with water to drink, to bathe, to wash their clothes, and now it's all contaminated and you cannot use it anymore. So 2.5 billion people in the world still do not have access to basic proper sanitation. 4.1 billion people have excreta that is not treated. That means not just 2.5 billion people don't have toilet, but those who have some toilet, the pipe brings it to the river and contaminates the shit. So contaminate the water. So when you have this kind of situation, the water cannot be clean, and you cannot have water solution because you don't have sanitation solution. And 1.5 million children die every year from diarrhea. So this is a really serious problem, and if we don't discuss, we cannot improve. So how do we solve this problem? We do it with no money, no power, no legitimacy. So I turn it into humor. So with this kind of sacrificial photograph, sitting on the throne in the toilet, wrapped up with toilet paper, this becomes one of the most useful National Geographic television photograph. Of course, the most famous photograph was the Afghan girl, and maybe this ranks on the high second or third position, I believe. With humor, we also create World Toilet Organization, which has an acronym called WTO. Of course, we intentionally play a pun on the World Trade Organization. And leveraging on this pun, we know the media love to have a reader enjoy reading their articles, and photographs like this with good punchline and lots of serious facts make the people get angry, get a reaction, and then they want to do something about it. So we created World Toilet Day, which is the founding day of the World Toilet Organization, which is also the day that we started the first inaugural World Toilet Summit in Singapore. And ever since that day, everybody celebrates World Toilet Day 19 November every year, and every year we have World Toilet Summit. So World Toilet Day grows larger and larger because people do want to talk about toilets. And once they start talking about it, actually they can't stop. You just try that in one of your wedding dinner, and you will find that what I say is true. You have in Sydney, on World Toilet Day, Caroma, which is a sanitary ware manufacturer, supported it and do this stunt for the media in Sydney. Then in Bollywood, movie stars, very, very pretty ones, are signing their name on the World Toilet Day board, and this created a lot of legitimacy for the subject, which turns from embarrassing to glamorous. Then in Berlin, at the main railway station, they actually conducted a press conference and also very, very successful. In Korea, they use some toys. It's really cute. And we started a big squat. And in South Africa, we have people squatting. In Singapore, in Cambodia, and of course in America, after Obama's election, we also have a true American spirit of yes, we can, in a totally new, refreshing note. In the UK, this is a picture at the Big Ben on World Toilet Day. Very, very successful queue. We have Bangalore. They are protesting that they don't have toilets, and so this is a lot of activists wanting to influence their politicians. In New Zealand, we have children drama telling how, if you don't have a toilet, how do you feel? In Russia, of course, they also have toilets, and they celebrate World Toilet Day through the Russian Toilet Association. We have in Canberra, all the politicians waiting to go onto the throne. Then in Amsterdam, in the public square, Simavi is a very big group, is celebrating with a blow-up toilet. And in Uganda, we have a friend called Wash United. We discussed and together came up with this idea of a World Toilet Cup. Because at that time, South Africa was hosting the World Cup, and of course, the acronym of the World Cup is WC. So we think WC is World Cup, let's have a World Toilet Cup. Soon enough, we have all the other big NGOs joining in. So we get UNICEF, who's joined the World Toilet Day crusade. You have WaterAid, and we found a group called the Golden Poop Award, and they do toilet humor. They get the British stand-up comics to talk about toilet jokes. It's really, really funny, and about 12 of them, and we run contests, and then we give the best jokes the Golden Poo Award. Of course, we are also very serious people. The UN human rights expert, Katerina de Albuquerque, go to all over the world in the UN to talk about the importance of November 19 as a World Toilet Day. And surprisingly, as success breeds success, we have the Liberia President, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, went to national broadcast on World Toilet Day to speak about why sanitation is so important for the country. I mean, from a zero-cost budget, advocacy value, from ordinary folks to celebrities to presidents. So you can see how a message can resonate very, very far and wide. Then we have, of course, the sex bomb guy in Bollywood called Shah Rukh Khan, and he is the ambassador of the WSSCC, and he talks about why he would dream about giving all women toilets. Recently, Matt Damon went on strike, and he says if we don't solve this problem, he's never going to go to the toilet anymore. Of course, it's a very wonderful publicity stunt, and soon enough, Richard Branson, Bono, and lots of other celebrities join in to this. So you can see when something is useful, everybody join in. And Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, of course, they were launched on 19 November, World Toilet Day, in the year 2010. I know that they don't know that that day is World Toilet Day, but what happened is that with their several hundreds of millions of dollars of premiere launch in every cinema in the world on World Toilet Day, they ranked 4th position on Twitter. And we checked that World Toilet Day ranked 5th position on Twitter, and our budget is 0. So we were really, really happy that we ranked up so high just next to Harry Potter, and we were even happier when we saw that in 6th position, it was Justin Bieber. Then we have Bill Gates now reinventing the toilet, putting lots of his millions of dollars to find a new way to recycle the excreta, the urine, into fertilizer, into energy, and also to find out how we can create ecological sanitation that use very, very little water. So I think that it is a very good effort, because the flush toilet uses so much water, and that technology, while being relevant more than 100 years ago, today is probably going to create a problem with water scarcity. And also, if we don't return the urine and the shit into the soil, we might run out of fertilizer and phosphorus from the mine. Our work has then caught the attention of President Clinton, who gave us his endorsement. So we're very happy that from a very bottom subject, that it can go to really the top with the President of America's endorsement. Unilever became the sponsor of World Toilet Day, and with their flush tracker, if you go to the website and you click, you can electronically flush, and when your shit arrives at the sewage plant or the river, they will send you an SMS to tell you that the shit has arrived. And then you go to the website and you see the whole journey of how it travels. It's a very, very nice experience. Last year, Unilever put up a sculpture where you can take part, and you put your face on the sculpture by sending us your photograph, and then we will put your face on the sculpture for 6 seconds, and you get back the picture and send it out on viral social media, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through Twitter, and it spreads very, very fast. If you go to Google and you type World Toilet Day, you get about 61 million. Now we start to work with Google and YouTube this year. You'll see lots of video coming up. Last year, this zero budget publicity effort reached a total potential viewership of 3.3 billion people of all our media coverage. So for 0 cent to reach this 3.3 billion is actually a better performance than the song Gangnam Style. We also have the World Toilet Summit every year, and from a very humble start, every year the summit travel to a different location, and this is an example of one of them. Here is the Crown Prince of Holland in 2007 opening the World Toilet Summit together with the President of India, Dr. Abdul Kalam. And of course, we know this year that the Crown Prince has become the King of Holland. We felt that the advocacy has to be transformed into real toilet on the ground, so we created the SaniShop micro-franchise. We teach the poor to start very, very small factory to produce toilet and to sell them through sales agents which are employed by the producer, and we didn't give them any toilet or any money, but we give them free training of how to run a business, and they have to borrow some money from either their relatives or themselves, that they have some cash, or the microfinance, and for $1,000 they start a factory and create 8 jobs and run the sanitation factory, selling very, very affordable system with local compost toilet treatment, and the women who are selling it earn $2 per toilet sold, and they actually felt very, very good because they can have extra income and won't be looked down by their husband or their mother-in-law. So by delivering sanitation sustainably, we just train them and they can sell toilet about $45, $47 per family and make profit, create jobs, create gender equality, create public health and privacy and convenience and respect from the community. We also further work with social pressure. In this case, the poster behind says, "We will not marry our daughter to families without toilets." So if you don't have toilets, you also don't have wives. For the work, some accolade Time magazine named me Hero of the Environment. And the film that you have seen just now went to Sundance Film Festival last year, and this year was in the Cannes Lions Festival. In fact, it was the opening session of the festival, and it received lots of enthusiastic response. So the good news now, I can tell you, probably you are one of the first to know, is that World Toilet Day will become a UN official day. On the 24th of July next week, the UN General Assembly will table this resolution for World Toilet Day 19 November to become a UN official day. We don't expect any objection. We have already got 70 over countries sponsorship, and they put their signature to it. And after next week, you will find that we have actually legitimized the subject that has been neglected so badly. With no money, we can turn it into the highest legitimacy, which is to be an official UN day. So we will commemorate, and we ask all of you to share the World Toilet Day message through Twitter, through LinkedIn, through Facebook. Take a picture of the toilet around you and compare it with the toilet that people are using, or no toilet, how they go to the toilet. You can do anything to celebrate World Toilet Day. In this case, I am designing a sculpture called Poo, Pee, and Happy. You can see the three individuals. This is a sculpture that we intend to erect in Singapore near the river, a very, very beautiful location where all can see. So thank you very much, and love your toilet. I would be happy to answer any question.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was a terrific presentation, and as you know, I'm equally excited about the tabling of World Toilet Day to be and for the event to be officially recognized. Maybe we'll even have a whole toilet week one day. So, questions. Nipun Abi has asked, how can engineers be taught about engineering sanitation? Jack, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I think that the engineers are very important. Depend on what kind of an engineer are you. If you are a product design engineer, then you can help us refine the current products to make them much more easier to produce, or cheaper, or have more feature, or look sexier. If you are a sanitation engineer, perhaps you can help to think about how to make the treatment go faster, cheaper, better, easier, and how do we recycle the sanitation, the excreta, back into useful resource, either energy or fertilizer or bricks or whatever. So engineers are very, very welcome. Both our email are available on the screen now, and I answer every email. I never go to sleep unless I finish answering your email. So some nights I really sleep very little. And what I like to do is, whoever have talent, please come forward and share it, because you can solve this problem, and people should all have toilet eventually.
Jack, I couldn't agree with you more, and I have to say I can absolutely vouch for Jack's sleeplessness. We've had many Skype conversations at strange hours of the night sometimes under the full moon, and he is wide awake wherever he is in the world. And he's right, about the power of engineers to really help us solve this challenge. It's epic in size. There's not that many problems that affect over 1 billion people in the world, and the fact that this one, affects almost half of our species is truly immense. But if you think about historical evidence, you look back at a place like London in the 1850s, the Thames River at that point was really an open sewer. Not so different from many of the communities that Jack and I are working in today. But there was an engineer, I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, named Joseph Bazalgette, who was a British civil engineer at the time. And together with a physician named Dr. John Snow, the two of them truly transformed London through engineering and through medicine, creating essentially the beginnings of modern disease theory, in the case of Dr. John Snow, ending the cholera outbreak in the 1850s by shutting off a water pump that had been contaminated. And Joseph Bazalgette was able to actually build the first connected sewer lines in London, which prompted the consumer market to start adopting different kind of toilets. So engineering really can transform not just cities, but the world. I think that's a fantastic example of what we've seen in the past and what we can see going forward. John Critchley asked a question, Jack. He says, what are the current recognized toilet designs for developing countries? Very good question, John. Jack, maybe you'd like to share some of your thoughts in terms of some of the ones that you're working on, and we can talk about some of the other ones that are out there already today.
Yeah. So actually there are about 7 or 8 different types of toilets. We typically would say that we can't wait for the sewerage pipe of those very big systems like $100 million kind of system to reach the poor, because otherwise we'd already have solved the problem. So standalone toilet treatment systems are very important, and we have to protect it from the flies, and we have to protect it from contaminating the water source, whether it is the river or the underground aquifer water. So one of the common ones that are very popular is septic tank. Another one is biogas toilet. Another one is urine diversion dry toilet. And another one is the twin pit composting toilet. There's also wetlands treatment. There is pond treatment if you have enough space. There is very, very simple toilet called arbolu, where after you shit for a certain amount of time, you just plant a tree over it, and the tree will grow very big, very fast. So that is also a form of treatment. So if you are planning which type of technology to use, you have to think the price that people can afford to buy, or free of charge, then it temporarily makes them have a habit of keep creating new ones, or what is the hydrology of that situation. If it's a very high water table, if you put composting toilet, it's actually going to contaminate the groundwater, so you can't do that. You have to have toilets that are sealed at the bottom so that it wouldn't contaminate it. So you sometimes have to make a trade-off between price and technology, and also never forget about the social acceptance, the cultural issue, because there are people who wipe, and there are people who wash, and there are people who squat, and there are people who sit, and even wiping can be by paper, by leaves, by stone, by sand, by twigs, all kind, So once you understand their habit and you want to transform them into hygienic people, you also have to explain to them why this is so. They have to wash their hands with soap. Teaching people rationally sometimes doesn't work. You have to motivate them, explain aspirationally, as if it is a fashion, it is a very classy thing to do. To own a toilet is like owning a cell phone. It is a status symbol, and selling toilets to the poor is very similar to selling a Louis Vuitton handbag to a lady. You have to make them want to buy it because it is an object of desire and a symbol of status. So when we choose the right technology, we think about all these social, demographic, financial, affordability, and cultural issues.
Oh, thank you, Jack. I think that's a great segue into our next question from Jason Capps. Jason, it's great to have you with us. It's another sanitation colleague who's based in New York and is doing great work, particularly around flood-prone areas. And Jason, I'll let you tell a little bit about what you do for this group. But his question, Jack, is really about how social businesses like theirs, which is Toilets for People, how can a social business like theirs partner with the World Toilet Organization SaniShop to get their toilets in front of customers?
Yeah, I think if you have technology, the best thing is to open source it and teach people how to use it, and then use local material to manufacture and sell it. So what do you get? You get an acknowledgement every time somebody builds a toilet with your design. You feel good that this is happening. If you were to distribute that through SaniShop, we acknowledge all the contribution and we will keep you informed of how is the progress. So if you have a proprietary system that has some intelligent parts, then perhaps you want to sell those intelligent parts and try to make those bulky parts and cheap parts locally, because cost is very, very important. A poor family earns about $2 a day. Some earn $1 a day. And if you were to ask them to spend 20% of their family income on buying a toilet, it's very, very difficult, because most of the money they earn went to food, and then they still have to take care of the energy. They have to take care of the cell phone costs nowadays. A lot of people have cell phone and no toilets. They have to send their children to school. Lots of needs are competing against the dollar. So try to bring your technology as low cost, as simple as possible. But if you were to send your information to me, we can together discuss how to price down your product and try to do it by going to scale. If we procure a lot of it, maybe the price would be reach a level where people can afford it.
Thank you, Jack. I think we still have time for several questions. So if you have questions, either type them in the chat window or the Q&A box just below it. I should add also some news that happened this week, which was very interesting, relating to our conversation today, is that researchers from the University of Bristol and Bristol's robotics laboratory in southwest England have actually created a fuel cell that uses bacteria to break down urine to generate electricity. They just published this in a study for the Royal Society of Chemistry Journal and the Physical Chemistry Chemical Physics. So essentially this is a microbial fuel power stack that has developed that generates enough power to provide SMS messaging, web browsing, and enough electricity for phone calls, which I think is pretty cool. But what's even better is if we could combine that with a modular waste separating toilet and really work with the engineering community to design that for developing markets. I think then we've got a really serious win-win solution, and that's exciting. So that's something just to think about in terms of a challenge that's now out there into the E4C universe. If any of you are really interested in looking at that and developing that, we'd love to work with you on that. Jack, something also to think about is things that aren't working. Maybe we can talk about also some examples of concepts that have been developed that don't work in this space. For example, I know that in Nairobi, the government there is really interested in building out sanitation and hygiene infrastructure over the next 2 years. Their economy has been on the rise, and it's very important for international partners to have access to basic services, as they grow their work there, as it is for the local community. The problem is that a place like Nairobi is already water scarce, and the government's planning on installing, traditional Western-based toilets, which are very water-intensive. If that happens, a water-scarce city is going to be a very water-scarce city, and what was originally a toilet problem could become a hippo problem if you're taking water supply and dredging from, let's say the Serengeti. Maybe you can give us some examples of things that aren't as practical.
Yes. I think that this is a really good example of trying to solve a problem without understanding the nature of the problem. So if you don't have water and you give them toilets, obviously what will happen is you have toilets that are abandoned, and the bureaucrats would spend money ticking the boxes and reporting that the project is successful. But actually, the project didn't have any effect because the people don't use it. So I give you several examples. The World Bank has been giving out toilets to poor people, and they turn them into storerooms and kitchens and shrines to pray to their gods. So why are these toilets used not as toilets? It's because the people have been defecating for centuries since their great-grandfather time, and nobody told them that the change of the habit is necessary. So when you tell people that you should have toilet because of health and hygiene, they will register it rationally, but emotionally it doesn't register, and so they don't do any change to their habit. And if you give them a toilet, they would use it for something else. And of course, the World Bank officer will go back to report that these villagers already have a sanitation coverage, which is not true. So you always, when you want to make toilets available, the best thing is they buy it. Because when they buy it, you know for sure they want it. And so how do you make it so affordable that they buy it? And when you turn it into a business, you can be sure that the businessman whom you train locally will continuously sell toilet because he's making profit. And the sales girls who are helping him to sell the toilet would continue promote it because they will earn a commission. So this becomes very, very sustainable. Whereas if you give free stuff, what will happen is those people who are trying to do a business out of it will not be able to. And in situations where they expect to get free toilets, sometimes waiting for years and no toilet, this would be actually a market distortion where the people who want to do business selling toilets, creating sustainable solutions, are distorted by the people who are giving toilets. So you can see giving is not always a good thing. You have to think about how to make it continuously happening. And I always advocate when you can give knowledge, give training, give the money for capacity building, but don't give a man a fish. Teach men how to fish.
Jack, do you think that there's Jordan Puckett asked, what is a good number to use to estimate the number of people per latrine, and does it vary for adults and children? Or maybe you can kind of describe the difference between in-home toilets, school toilets, and community toilets.
Yeah, I think that in the house, usually 5 person per toilet, average can be 6. So that is a home toilet. And then in a common toilet, maybe about 20 per toilet, but it can be still tolerable up to maybe 40 people per toilet if you have a very good cleaning cycles and not so much peak hour and spread it out. So you really have to study the actual situation every time to determine what is the minimum ideal number for having toilets. I want to give you another example of how failure projects happen. We gave long ago when I first started, we built a toilet in the rural China school, and the toilet is the most beautiful building in the whole school. And a year later, when we go back there, we saw that the principal have moved his office into the toilet because he found that he is a high status in the school and he should have the best room. The best room is the bathroom. So you see, having the toilet too good in comparison with the building is also not correct. So another situation, we gave a public toilet to a village, and when we visited it, it was really, really well maintained and clean. And we were so happy that the people have kept it very well maintained. But actually, we were told that nobody uses it because they don't want to spend money to have a cleaner, and so they lock it up, and everybody continue to do open defecation. But every time a government official comes, they will open that toilet, and the government official will be so impressed that the villagers have such a nice toilet. So sometimes what you see is not what you get.
Yeah, I agree, Jack. Good point. Thinking about this in a broader context, William Gibbs has asked us, why are governments, even in poor countries, not supporting basic sanitation services and facilities which seem so essential to societal health and welfare, and what are the real barriers? You want to take the first stab, Jack?
Yeah. So most governments are having a lot of competing needs. So they have to serve the people according to what is most popular to win them votes. So if the people say we want water, they give them water. If they say we want roads or school or electricity, so tends to be those more say sexy products and services are demanded first. And toilets being something that has not been glamorous, has always been neglected. And the reason is you have to change the person's behavior, change the person's habit before you can be successful. Whereas if you supply water, once you supply a lot of say treadle pumps that you can draw water from underground or do a borehole, once people have water, they know how to use it. They use it for drinking, cooking, bathing, washing. But if you want them to have toilet, it's much more complicated. That is why training them, changing their habit, motivating them aspirationally plus rationally, and then teaching their people to start businesses, making toilets, selling toilets, training them how to sell toilets, creating jealousy in the community so that people who have toilets are seen as higher status than people who don't have. All this require a lot of hard work. And if politicians want instant gratification, if donors want instant gratification, they always go to the things that are most visible, most glamorous. Long ago, the politicians don't even want to take photograph next to a toilet. So now, because the media writes so much about it, and the World Toilet Day and this kind of advocacy creates so much legitimacy that politicians now want to take photograph of themselves next to a toilet because that will also win them votes. So I think that supply and demand mechanism in the marketplace has to be excited, and once we're able to arouse that, the market mechanism can naturally function, and that will make buying of toilet and selling of toilet a normal thing in the future.
Yeah, I think just to echo your point, the lack of political will is really frustrating. It's not that they don't know that this is important. It's just, I think, one, balancing priorities, and in the context of what politicians can sell to their constituents, which clearly it's not an engineering problem, but it is something that all of us can have a role in terms of putting pressure on our representatives to take action, whether that be here in the United States, whether that's in Europe, whether that's in the Global South. All of our representatives at the UN have made commitments for sanitation, hygiene, and water for the Millennium Development Goals. Those commitments, the UN is meeting in a little less than 2 months now, and sanitation is the only Millennium Development Goal that is actually off track. So it's not a surprise that for an issue that has a quote-unquote yuck factor for them, that they've kind of let it drag. So reminding them that there are commitments that they've made, and that this is extremely important in terms of the return on investment in sanitation. You can't get that better. Depending on the region, $1 invested in sanitation, hygiene, and water combined can yield anywhere from $4 to upwards of $32, depending on the community that you're operating in, which is amazing. So, I wouldn't be shy to use your voices, equally as you are your creative engineering brains for this. Let's see. Are there any other questions relating? Let's see. Jordan Puckett asks how we balance the high cost of extracting waste from a pit latrine versus just building new ones. And are there good methods for naturally accelerating the decomposition of the waste? Jordan, great question. I think that this is one that a lot of NGOs as well as local entrepreneurs face in the field. I can tell you that personally I've seen my fair share of toilet graveyards out there that are projects that have been built and then abandoned. But a lot of that is less about the technology being deployed and more about the engagement of the local community, making sure that there is someone that is a real champion who understands the importance of that and is maintaining it, and who's empowered to do so. But Jack, maybe you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that depending on the types of toilets, biogas toilet doesn't need much extraction because it becomes methane gas where you can actually use for cooking, or if it's too small amount, you just flat it off. If it's big enough, you can actually run street lamps at night with the biogas. So other type like the composting toilet, actually, if you keep it long enough, like 10 months, you can dig it out with a shovel without having to worry about pathogens release if it's already dry. Where you have a septic tank, I think that's when you really need to extract it, and there are very, very small systems that even you can extract it with by yourself without having some companies to come and do it. But of course, again, if you can turn it into a business, you can find a local guy to run it as a business. This can be very, very profitable as well. So the willingness to pay and the ability to pay is a balance. If there's a very low ability to pay, you cannot design high maintenance cost system because eventually it will fail. Where there is more affordability, you can design with more sophisticated design. So before you design and implement any sanitation solution, you have to think through Will someone maintain it? Will someone pay to maintain it? Will someone be able to do it themselves? Will someone be able to afford it? All this, or culturally, if like in India, some places, you cannot have someone touch it unless he's a lower caste untouchable. Then how do you overcome that cultural system barrier? Sometimes you have to rebrand the way the removal of the excreta look like. So you have to make the act a little bit more classy or look quite different. So there are a lot of thinking to do, but it must be always contextual. Yeah.
Jack, thank you, and thank you everyone to a really inspiring and incredible discussion. I would love to continue this. We are out of time for the webinar, and on the screen now you will see the PDH code and email address should you wish to earn a professional development hour for this. And if you have any questions about the webinar series, please feel free to email the webinar team. Don't forget to be an E4C member to never miss one of the announcements about these incredible discussions. And again, if you want to get involved, roll up your sleeves and literally get in the shit with either Jack or myself or any of our colleagues. We would love to have you collaborate with us. We really look forward to taking on this thing. Thanks again. We wish you a pleasant day, evening, or night. We look forward to seeing you next time. And as we like to say, thank you for giving a shit about sanitation.
Thank you very much, everyone.